Like, I always think if something's threatening the life of my family of any kind, like, we're gonna have a problem, right? But I also understood too that I needed to stay aware of my own actions because I knew he was looking at me. So if he would have seen me get upset, get pissed off, get ready to cuss this guy out, then he would have think that was acceptable behavior, and he could think that he could lose his cool.
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and then.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I'm your host, Rolo, and I am so glad to be back with you today. And of course, we're back with another great episode of this podcast. And obviously, you know that we touch on personal and professional development, and as well as just overall life. Okay, so we want to make sure that we dive right in. And of course, you guys know the particulars, man. Definitely feel free to hit me up on the socials: Facebook, Instagram at Rolo Runs the City podcast, as well as Rolo Runs the City Music. And of course, I'm on TikTok at Rolo Runs the City _ as well as X at Rolo Runs the City. And of course, if you're checking on YouTube, you just go ahead and pull up Rolo Runs the City, and you're gonna find the music or the podcast, either or over there. And don't forget, man, RoloRunsTheCity.com. That is Rolo Runs. And this episode is called "Control Yourself When the World Won't." And I thought this was just so major. I had so many things happen to me this past week that just totally tested my character and who I am. Of course, and we're all trying to do that internal work to get better, to make sure that we can do all we can to stay in control of ourselves and not really worry and determine I guess, our feelings based on the external. Okay. Um, so, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Okay. You don't need the world to be right. You need to be right within yourself. Okay. Remember, people won't, you know, whether it's people or situations, there's always variables when it's outside of you. And the only thing that you can actually do is you can actually make sure that you control how you interpret things and how you respond, as opposed to being very instinctive, reactionary, and possibly, go into a pitfall that we don't want. Okay. Um, I'm going to tell you like this: whether it's, people not correcting their kids, people not following the rules and regulations that's actually put out. Like I said, that's what separates us between the humans and the actual instinctive four-legged creatures and animals. Okay. Life's not always going to go as smooth, but we can always remember on how we're going to respond to situations as opposed to just reacting. Okay. But was I tested in multiple ways this week? Okay. Every situation reminded me that I'm not in control of the world, but I'm in control of myself. Okay. And like, what I'm saying, we're going to get into this, right? I had a situation that happened to me this past week with, let me adjust myself here. Okay, there we go. We had a situation that happened this week where I was coaching my son's Miracle League baseball team. And, we had a great time. It was opening weekend. And we actually, were able to actually, get things going in reference to the season. Very glad to have all my kiddos back, all the parents. I mean, it's, just it's a great vibe, a great experience overall. Like, I miss it when I'm not playing with them, right? But, anyway, after the game, the kids, they have their own special playground. It's basically it's catered to, children of special needs. And, I know the Miracle League of Newton County has done a tremendous job raising money, so then that way they can go ahead and absolutely enjoy those amenities that are actually provided to our special needs kiddos, right? It's wheelchair accessible. I mean, it's just it's awesome for the kids, right? And I had a situation where there was a kid, very tall, right? But I knew he was a kid. I'm like, he's just a tall kid, right? So happens, he was 14 years old, right? So the situation was he was messing around on the swings to where he was like wrapping the chain links, and this is stuff that like I grew up with, living back in the projects, you know what I'm saying, like a long, long time ago, kids doing stupid stuff, being destructive, as well as I was ingrained in that as well because I didn't know any better and I didn't have anybody there to teach me better. Okay. So I wish somebody would had, pulled me to the side and told me, hey, don't do things this way. It's destructive. We don't want to do that, etc. But anyway, so I ended up in a situation where I actually had to address the young man. I said, "Hey," I said, "Can you do me a favor? Can you take that swing down because you're wrapping it around the pole. It's not supposed to be around the pole. Can you go ahead and make sure you take care of that so then that way we don't damage the equipment?" So his mother was right there, right? But mind you, his mother was looking at him do this and she didn't address him at all, right? As if it were okay, which it wasn't okay. All right. And next thing you know, I wasn't being, disrespectful of any kind. I mean, I was just simply correcting his behavior because I understand that, especially with that part of the park, it's not part of the county rec center. That if something gets damaged, they'll come out and fix it. Like this is stuff that's like separate from the county rec, and it would take forever to get done. And especially if we don't have the proper funding for it, it won't get fixed if it gets damaged. So I simply explained that to the young man after, so then that way he understood why I told him because I wasn't trying to flex on him like in any way. I mean, I'm a grown man. I'm not going to do that, but I did talk to him as the young man that he is. So then that way, he understood what was going on. So, um, there was no disrespectful, behavior whatsoever or interaction between the two. But this 14-year-old child, which was taller than me, but that doesn't say much. I'm only 5'8", right? But needless to say, it wasn't the fact that, he didn't need protection from being addressed about the situation. He needed direction. And evidently that's what his mother felt like. She felt like she was you know, wanted to protect him, but she was trying to protect him from taking accountability. And I found that as a problem, but I'm not there to parent him. I was just simply there to correct the situation because I didn't want the equipment to get damaged. Therefore, I addressed the situation accordingly. And, his mother was she was irate with me. She wanted to go on the back and forth. I'm not going to do that. Obviously, I'm a respectable man. And I even explained to her, I said, hey, I've been since a teenager, in service of, this country, as well as any community that I'm a part of. I'm in service of its people, particularly right here, like the Miracle League, and advocating for those kids and having them being able to have a safe haven for them to go to and enjoy their playground, as well as my son, enjoy that playground as well. And she told me that she didn't have a problem with my messaging. She just had a problem with my tone in reference to how I went ahead and addressed her son. And I simply explained to her, I said, well, ma'am, if I'm talking to you like I'm talking to you right now, my tone is adjusted because of the fact that I do know that I'm talking to a female. Okay. I didn't yell at him, and I'm talking to a young man. I wasn't a baby. If it were a baby, I would adjust myself as well too. But I understood that. I was like, he's got to be anywhere from 13 to 16 years old. But he was tall. He was a tall kid. But at the end of the day, he was, he's growing up to be a young man. And as she tried to get loud with me, the young man even said, "Hey, mom, I get it. Don't worry about it. I went ahead and fixed it." Like he understood the assignment. So evidently he's got some mentoring going on somewhere from an older gentleman, whether if it be dad or granddad or uncle or whatever. Like somebody is in his life. Did he have a lapse in judgment of doing some dumb stuff and possibly trying to break some equipment? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but then again, we're kids, right? Like I always tell everybody all the time that our frontal lobe isn't actually fully developed as functional human beings until like the age of 28, and that's like male and female, right? But what I wanted her to understand was the only reason why I was addressing him was because one, we didn't want the equipment to get messed up. Two, it wasn't that I had a bad tonality with him. He's going to have to understand how to interact with just anybody of authority. And I'm not saying I have an authority over the park. That's not what I'm saying, but I am an elder, right? So as I grew up, I understood that, hey, respect your elders, regardless of whether they sound crazy or not. Just don't, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, ma'am, no, sir. It is what it is, right? And mind you, that's self taught because I didn't grow up with those values. That stuff that I seen, okay, people get things done by being polite. So a lot of times it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. So I said, let me make sure that I go ahead and start implementing that into my toolbox on how to interact with one another. So, needless to say, the woman, she shook my hand and I told her, I said, look, and this is another thing too. I was like, hey, I apologize if you took my tonality as disrespect, but I want you to understand. And I let her know as well. I said, I understand. And I hate to throw race into things because that's not something that I like to do. But I had to get her to understand that, us as people of color, I told her, I said, I understand that many times we walk into situations and it doesn't bode well for, people of color for us to come out, irate, aggressive, being abrasive of any kind. I told her, I said, so his interaction that he had with me was actually a great interaction because it showed that he does have respect for authority and there's no excuse for anybody to try to attack him in any way, whether if it be verbally, physically, whatever, because the young man knew how to handle himself accordingly, which I gave him a kudos for. But I also explained to him the reason why we do what we do and why we didn't want to break the stuff. And because I'm a firm believer, and it's like, I'm a firm believer in letting somebody know why I'm saying something and the reason behind it. And it's not because I'm over explaining, not that at all. I'm being very informative. I let him know, I say, hey, county won't pay for that. This comes out of funding from the Miracle League, the people that are in charge of the park. If they don't have the money for it, they won't pay for it. So I was being very, very informative to him. And then he understood too. He said, oh, well, I appreciate that. He's like, I'm sorry. I said, no, you're good, man. I said, but I let him know. I said, hey, I said, but we can't do that. So I said, you see somebody else doing it, and just like correct us, hey, man, they ain't got the money to fix that. So please, like, don't do it. And it's not because you're out here trying to be Superman. But it's like, dude, if something's wrong, then address it. You know what I mean? And how would I look that I'm a coach of the league and I'm seeing this happen in front of my face and I say nothing? Like I'm just as guilty as his mother who didn't correct him, right? So at the end of the day, like I said, the problem wasn't my tone with her child. It was just more than likely the lack of action that she took to correct him because she didn't correct him. And that showed me that she felt that maybe it was not a big deal or that it was okay that it was occurring. So I don't think, and I was not, and I even explained to her, just like I said, being in a lifetime full of service like I've been, I said, hey, somebody who was to come in here, if we had an active shooter in here and somebody was coming pointing a gun at you, I would take the bullet for you because I've been doing that. And I've been that type of person since I was 18 years old. Okay. When I decided to enlist in the military. Okay. And that has not changed. Okay. We're talking about over 30 years. That has not changed. Okay. It's the same thing. Like it's still the same premise that I live by. So I just wanted to go ahead and make sure that I let her know that. And then she told me, thank you for your service. And I said, that's not what I'm telling you that for. I appreciate that, but that's not what I'm telling you that for because I'm not asking for a thank you. But what I'm letting you know is my stance on, the people that I advocate for. And I advocate for this league, just like I advocate for this country. If my ass ended up having to go back to Iran or whatever it is. If I had to go and fight a war over there, then that's just what I would do. Is like, hey, we need volunteers. There's people that we don't have enough of a fighting force. So I'm like, don't worry about it. Give me a few weeks to get in military shape and I got it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm in bad shape because obviously I do the best that I can to stay in shape. And because they always say if you stay prepared, you never got to get ready, right? But I will tell you this. That interaction that I had with her son had a learning lesson as well. Not only to just not, be destructive, but also seeing how he needed to handle when somebody addresses him about something that he's doing wrong. So instead of him getting upset and irate, he's looking at his mom saying, this is not the right behavior. Especially and everybody goes on social media and they're seeing all these bad interactions, whether if it's between, older people against younger people, people against authority like the cops or U.S. Marshals or even ICE for that matter. Whatever's going on in this crazy ass world that a whole bunch of people are actually getting their eyes on, they're saying, okay, how can I de-escalate the situation? So that young man exercised a perfect example of I can't control the outer world, but I can control how I respond, and he did absolutely well. So kudos to that young man, and and mom having a young man like that around her is only going to make her better too. So we're all entitled to our mistakes. He's young, I know I'm young, and well, I'm not as young as I could be, but I was young at one time, and I understood how that can occur. But like I said, I always wish that I had somebody to kind of correct me, so I wouldn't have such the hard knock life that I actually was subjected to. Anyway, but I've noticed about a lot of these situations that occurred, right? Is just it's simply a matchup between anger and discipline, right? So next situation I run into, right? I go into this past week, I go to Home Depot, right? And I'm with my son. It's early in the morning. I mean, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. We're trying to, go in and go out because I'm trying to get what I need to get. So then that way I can, get to my project, right? Because I had a project that I had to get done at the house. And I'm with my son. And, for anybody that knows me, my son has autism. So I'm really doing what I can to do the best to just raise him as the best young man that he could possibly be. So then that way I can feel confident that he can stand on his own too. So every day is a teaching moment for him. And I'm getting ready to leave, right? This guy's far away. He's in like a Dodge Ram 1500, right? He's like far away, right? But we're getting ready to cross. But I told my son, I said, Jackson, wait right here because I don't know if this guy is going to stop. So he stays by me. He says, okay, Dad. He stays with me. And then the guy just drives by, right? Evidently sees us that we're about to cross. And obviously, when you're leaving out of a store, you have those yellow lines and they either says yield or stop, either or, acknowledging pedestrian traffic. And the guy just drives by, right? And then the funny thing is, he passes by and my son said, Dad, the man didn't stop. I was like, yeah, I know, Jackson, let's go. So I see the guy, he parks directly behind me as I go to my car, and I see him get out. And I just looked at him and I just wanted to, I ain't gonna lie, I wanted to cuss him out, right? And then his partner, he sees me, he nods his head hello, and I didn't say anything to him. I just looked at his partner and I said, Jackson, get in the car. Right? So it was funny because, dude, I wanted to go off. Because first of all, I'm there extremely early in the morning because this is a continuous project that I'm doing, which I'm going to get into next, right? But this is a project that I'm doing. I'm just trying to get everything that I need so then that way I can get some stuff done. And I'm trying to give my son a teachable moment. And unfortunately, that teachable moment was I didn't want my son to understand by the time he's 25 years old. I want him to know nice and early that most people ain't worth a damn. Okay. This guy evidently seen that we were trying to cross, but he didn't care. Right. And then he goes and he parks behind me. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Rolo, calm down. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to set an example for our son to be under control. And I was able to exercise that. Right. Was I upset? Absolutely. Did I blow up? No. Kudos to me. Thank you, Jesus. That's why I'm doing the internal work. Right. But not everybody follows the rules. But I always tell him you must stay aware. And not everybody has the best of intentions. So that was a teachable moment for my son that I was actually absolutely able to tell him because of the fact that he understood that, hey, Dad, the man didn't stop. And that's the reason why we look both ways before we cross the street. And you can't trust anybody. People have to acknowledge you, whether, if they see you're crossing, if they acknowledge you, you can cross. If not, you're going to just have to wait. So these are just like simple, basic life skills, things I'm trying to teach him. But what I'm trying to get him to understand is, not everybody has your best interest because we live in such a self-absorbed world that you really have to make sure that your awareness is absolutely heightened because of the fact that they care so much about their own stuff, they're not thinking about anybody else. So that guy could have really easily hit us with his damn truck, right? Because evidently he wasn't going to stop. But what I wanted my son to understand was that to always, Like they used to say, every time when I was in the army, stay alert, stay alive, right? So I always live by that same premise. And I told him, I said, hey, stay alert, stay alive, safety. And then he said, Dad, safety's first. There you go. But I'm giving myself a lot of grace because I know I get upset, especially with things like that, because I'm just like, man, like I always think if something's threatening the life of my family of any kind, like we're gonna have a problem, right? But I also understood too that I needed to stay aware of my own actions because I knew he was looking at me. So if he would have seen me get upset, get pissed off, get ready to cuss this guy out, then he would have think that was acceptable behavior and he could think that he could lose his cool. And of course, a few episodes ago, we talked about, your strength and your anger is not in a place of just respect, but it's poverty. So if you guys want to check that out, yeah, I definitely need to check that out as well. But I mean, for real, we wanted to make sure that we kept our cool, and that's exactly what I did. So, you know, now we're gonna bounce into why I went to the Home Depot, man. Right? I ran into a plumbing situation at my house, right? So, I've had this damn shower's been dripping forever, right? So I know obviously, your shower's dripping, you got to go ahead and change the cartridge in your from the plumbing in your shower. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me go ahead and do that. So I go ahead and I try to get this damn thing done. And it's something that's supposed to be routine. It's not supposed to be hard. It's pretty easy. I'm no plumber, but I know how to get things done. So, I went ahead and I'm like, okay, so let me go ahead and do this. And then that way I can get this thing addressed. My wife won't keep giving me this honey-do list on like, honey, we need to get this fixed. We need to get this fixed. So, you know, I'm trying to address that. So anyway, I mean, it goes from the handle and then just from the handle to the O-ring and to the golden ring and all this other freaking crap, right? Where like it was something that was supposed to be routine and unfortunately it wasn't routine. Okay. It was a point where I didn't have the right tools. Okay. Things went wrong. And evidently that's how life works. So I looked at this plumbing job as a metaphor for life. Like, hey, it's like sometimes you're not going to have the right tools, and sometimes, things are going to go wrong. And that's just how life is going to be. How are you going to react? How are you going to respond? How are you going to adjust? What are we going to do? So then that way we can get this job done. Whether if it's clean or it's messy, the job needs to it just needs to get done, right? So, I noticed that most people don't fail due to their inability. They fail because it didn't go the way they expected it to go. Okay. Sometimes things just happen. Okay. Like, I understand sometimes we're not well equipped to take care of something. And it's like, okay, well, what can I do to equip myself for this situation to be prepared for when it arises? So I'm well aware of that, right? So, like for instance, for me, there was some things I didn't have, and I had to go to the Home Depot, and it almost cost me to blow up on a guy. And luckily for me, I've been doing the internal work where I didn't do that. Okay, but I looked at this whole situation when I was doing it, right? Like I had forever the hardest time to take out this damn handle, right? The handle wasn't the easiest part. It wasn't like one of those easy handles where it's clear, you pop the little cap open and you go ahead and you take out the screw and then you can get access to your cartridge. It was none of that. It was a freaking fixed handle that it's had the nut that you have to take out and the screw you got to take out is went through corrosion for years upon years upon years. And I had to freaking try to, get to a point where I had to, go in with a drill bit and try to, and that's the thing too, you don't ever want to do that with plumbing, but you have to do something to, break the corrosion and, it's just a big mess. Well, anyway, right. It got to a point where I was able to take the damn handle off. And then next thing you know, I'm like, oh man, now I got to, pull the sleeve off. I got to get to the damn, to this golden ring and take the ring off. And then that was just a headache because I didn't have anything big enough. And I said, Jesus Christ. So I got to go pick up this tool. So then that way I can go ahead and take care. I mean, I think it was 7 inches wrapped all around, which is like something like, I think almost a 3 point something diameter or whatever. Right. And I'm like, man, I don't have the tools for this. So I had to go. I made a run to Walmart, that night, and then couldn't get the right tool because the tool that I got wasn't wide enough so I can twist the damn thing off. I'm like, man, I mean, I went through this whole damn headache. I mean, to a point where, my water was shut off because obviously you can't have the water running when you're doing these projects. It can get really messy. And obviously, you don't want that thing to just be running all night because your bill will be a nightmare, right? So that was one of the things. Like I said, man, I got to get up. I got to go to Home Depot, got to get the stuff done, yada, yada, right? So anyway, um, I get the proper tool. I did everything I needed to do. Finally, I go twist the damn thing off. I'm like, all right, cool. I go to pull out the cartridge. Cartridge breaks a little bit. Like, Jesus Christ, got to clean this stuff out. Finally, able to do it. Get the reassembly done. Water's back on. Nice shower. No leak. New cartridge. New faceplate. Everything the whole nine, right? So I could have easily just went ahead and outsourced this to a plumber, right? But Lord knows that, between my tool and then my cartridge and um, that probably cost me maybe, I want to say close to like $150, right? No, well, yeah, the tool, the cartridge, and then on top of that, the faceplate. So we'll say about 225, right? But had I had went with a quote unquote professional plumber, he would have charged me damn $700, you know, for a job that was not going to take him that long because it's very routine and they always run into hiccups all the time. So what I did was I wanted to look at this situation as a teachable moment for me to where I'm trying to get a job done. I'm trying to be the person that I'm trying to be, right? And this is the way I want you guys to look at this too. Sometimes there's something that's in your way. And in order for you to become the person that you want to be, you're going to have to go through the process. So a lot of people go ahead and they want to harp on the result and say, man, the result's amazing. I love this result. I cannot wait to get this result, right? And they don't get the result because they don't understand that they're going to have to go through the process. They don't like the process and they don't want to go through the process because the process is ugly, but they don't understand the finished product is not available until that process is complete. So I looked at that like I had a hard time taking out the handle. I took out the handle. Bam. The next barrier was like, okay, this is trying to keep me away from the person that I want to be, right? So I'm like, man, I didn't have the proper tools. So then that way I could take care of the next objective. I upgraded my tool game. Next thing you know, I was able to do that. Then I ran into a little bit more of a mess, which is what you're going to run into in life when you're trying to be on that process of getting to that higher level. And it's like, man, pieces are broken here, broken there, but then you're able to take care of that. And then you got to clean the area out. And it's like, okay, now we're reinstalling the new, whether if it's, you're trying to install a new mindset, you're trying to improve your body, whatever it is, your finances, whatever. It's like, okay, now we're going to put the things in place so we can be successful. So that's the way I looked at this little plumbing job, right? So I went ahead and did everything I need to do. And I was so happy when I was able to turn that water on and there was no leak and nothing was damaged. And I had a brand new set for my wife. And my wife's like, man, this feels like a brand new shower, right? That was such a great feeling. But that's what we go through in life. If you're willing to go through the process of that, of the messiness of not having the proper tools at the certain stages and not able to, just simply start. Like I looked at starting, like, trying to take the handle off. I couldn't even take the damn handle off, right? Sometimes people have a hard time trying to put their shoes on. So then that way they could go walk a half a mile or walk a quarter of a mile, let alone not run, just but even walk. So they can try to get themselves back into it. But it's like once I got the handle off, it was like, okay, the shoes are on. Okay. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm trying to get to this next level. Oh man, I'm really trying to get this fit body, but I'm not really there yet. Why? Because I still have bad eating habits, although I'm starting to try to move my body. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have the right tools yet. Bam, okay. Was able to get the right tools. Hey, I eliminated stuff out of my diet, right? That's like the next step, right? And then next thing you know, things are messy because that process is going to be grueling. So you have to make sure that you endure that process. And then by the time you know it, and it's not so much that you're always going to have a finished product. And it's like, oh man, I'm done. Because you're always going to be tested daily, every day. But I think the most important part about being tested is knowing that you're prepared for the test. So the best thing that you could do is archive all these situations, keep it in your mind and understand when something like that arises, like, hey man, we've been here before. I got this. I'm not worried about it. Okay. Because the worst thing you could do is not rely on your experience because you forget about what you did. And a lot of people forget who the hell they are. So I think that's a absolutely important thing. And I want people to know that the world is unpredictable and you can't control people, situations, or outcomes. But what you can control is your reaction, your discipline, and your standards. And that was one thing that I realized. I said, no, man, I said, I'm a very disciplined individual in all phases of this game. Okay. And I can control how I can react because I respond more than being reactive. Okay. So I try to be very cerebral in every situation, whether it was the interaction with the mom and the kid with the swing, or, the guy at Home Depot, or even not ripping my damn pipe out of the wall because I was just pissed off about the situation. Okay. I had to be very responsive of the situation, think very cerebral. So then that way I didn't let my inner animal just take over and just want to beat the hell out of the guy, curse the lady out, and rip the pipe out of the damn wall. Okay. So, and then I have a standard about myself, and that standard is getting things done. And you guys already know this. Last year I ran that marathon, and at mile 7, I was jacked the hell up, right? But I still ran another 19 miles, hurt, injured, could barely freaking move, didn't stop till mile 22. So then I was able to get a drink and actually walk a little bit. And I say, hey, I got 4 more miles to go. I'm going to get this done. So my standards is whatever you start, you finish. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be finished and then you're just done completely. You may have gone and gotten to the pinnacle of a certain mountain, but you're going to come back down and you're going to climb the next mountain. It just it is what it is. But that's when you take that experience, you put it inside your archives, and whenever you got to pull that damn bad boy out, you're able to do so because you've done it over and over and over again. And you need a constant reminder of who you are. Okay. So if you're waiting for life to be perfect before you become your best self, I'm going to tell you like this, you're going to be waiting forever, man. It just is what it is. So my recommendation to you is, sir, ma'am, if you decide to go ahead and want to level up and you're being focused so much, just being like results driven, understand that process is messy. That process is ugly. That process is not guaranteed to give you the results that you want. But understand that even though those results, they may vary from time to time, that process is the inevitable. You're not getting away from that. If anybody who wants to achieve anything, something great, that process is unavoidable. So, yeah, that's really what happened to me. It was an eventful week. It's funny because, folks would be like, oh man, but I thought your week would have been a little bit more chaotic. Like, I thought you got into a fight with so and so, and your car broke down on the side of the road, and you had an issue with the cops, and you tried to go bankrupt, and because creditors are calling you, and you're about to lose your house. That doesn't sound like a crazy chaotic week. That sounds like an undisciplined person who just lost damn control. Like, that's one of those things that we desperately try not to do. We don't want to lose control in that manner. Okay. So I'm sorry if my chaotic week sounded a little boring to you, but hey, man, that's what it is. I always look at things as a teachable moment, like I try to do with a young man, as well as, hopefully I did that, with his mother as well. And she can possibly have a better interaction with someone else if she ever runs into that situation again. You know, people are always going to be ignorant no matter what, no matter how much you try to teach them. And that guy, with him just taking off and just like acting like nothing happened when he could have been courteous and let us cross, but thank goodness, because who knows if we would have stopped or not. People are going to be ignorant. Sometimes you as an individual need to understand people are just going to be ignorant and you just got to let them be. And we always talk about it all the time. If you don't feel like that there's an issue, you'll never address it, right? It is what it is. And then, of course, with the situation with the plumbing, it just taught me to be patient. It taught me to just see things through. Could I have called the plumber? Absolutely. Could I have been about $700 to $900 less richer than I am right now? Probably, because that's probably what they would have damn charged me. Okay. But being the fact that I put so much time into it already, there was no getting out of it. And I thought about it this way. I said, whenever I'm running these races and I'm having a hard time and I'm hurting and I may be injured, do I go ahead and tag somebody in so they can go ahead and come and finish the rest for me? No, this is something I got to do on my own. So I approached it the same way. So my standard is to finish. And that's exactly what got done. But anyway, that was more of a therapeutic episode for me because I had to get that off my chest. So I greatly do appreciate you guys even checking me out on that. But look, yeah, take care, Godspeed. I'm very grateful for you guys checking me out, and I'm very grateful that you guys have stuck with me so far. And oh yeah, needless to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I got that run done, that 5K, the one that broke my back last year after the marathon. I did it this year. I was able to actually shave off 20 minutes, which I kind of figured that I would, but I was very impressed at the fact that I didn't let that past injury get into my head and alter my performance, knowing that I'm trying to build back up to be the runner that I used to be, if not possibly even better. Who knows? We'll see. It's going to be an eventful year. Anyway, y'all take care, Godspeed. This is Rolo, and I'm very appreciative of you guys checking me out, man. I really am. And like I said, be the goat, never sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.